connecting with my phone, so I hope is fine. I will start with Jai Radha Madhava. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana, Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Stotara Satashi Srimati Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Stotara Satashi Srimati Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. His co-founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Prem se Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Jai Shri Shri Radha Madhava Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Yamuna Mai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Vihatmirtanga Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhaktavrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaura Parimanande. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, so today's verses is we are reading today from the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and it's the 10th chapter and verses 14 to 16. So, text 14. Nyaruntan utkalat pashpam at autkantya devaki sute niryatya garanno patram etisyat bandhavastriyaha. Word for word translation. Nyaruntan, checking with great difficulty. Utkalat, overflowing. Pashpam, tears. Outkantyat, because of great anxiety. Devaki sute, unto the son of Devaki. Niryati, having come out. Hagarat from the palace, Naha, not, Abhadram, inauspiciousness, Iti, thus, Syat, may happen, Bandhava, relative, Striyaha, ladies. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. The female relatives, whose eyes were flooded with tears out of anxiety for Krishna, came out of the palace. They could only stop their tears with great difficulty. They feared that tears would cause misfortune at the time of departure. Purport. There were hundreds of ladies in the palace of Hastinapur. All of them were affectionate to Krishna. All of them were relatives also. When they saw that Krishna was going away from the palace for his native place, they were very anxious for him, and as usual, tears began to roll down their cheeks. They thought at the same time that tears at that moment might be a cause of misfortune for Krishna. Therefore, they wanted to check them. It was very difficult for them because they could not be checked. Therefore, they smeared their tears in their eyes, and their hearts dropped. Therefore, ladies who were the wives and daughters-in-law of those who died in the battlefield never came in contact with Krishna, in direct contact with Krishna, but all of them heard of him and his great activities, and thus they thought of him, talked of him, his name, fame, etc. And thus they became affectionate, also like those who were in direct contact. Therefore, directly or indirectly, anyone who thinks of Krishna, talks of Krishna, or worships Krishna becomes attached to him. Because Krishna is absolute, there is no difference between his name, form, quality, etc. Our intimate relation with Krishna can be confidentially revived by talking of, hearing of, or remembering him. It is so done due to spiritual potency. Text 15. Mritanga Shankha Bheryascha Vina Panava Gomukkaha Tundhuri Anaka Gantadya Nedur Dundu Bhayastata. Word for word translation. Mridanga, sweet sounding drum. Shankha, conch shell. Peryaha, brass band. Cha, and Veena, string band. Panava, a kind of flute. Gomukkaha, another flute. Tundhuri, another drum. Anaka, kettle. Ganta, bell. Adyaha, others. Nituhu, sounded. Dundupayaha, other different types of drums. Tatha, at that time. Translation. While the Lord was departing from the palace of Hastinapur, different types of drums like the mridanga, thole, nagra, tundhuri, and tuntubi, and flutes of different types, the veena, gomukha, and peri, all sounded together to show him honor. Text 16. Prasada Shikhararuttaha Kurunaryo Didrikshaya Vivrishuh Kusumai Krishnam Prema Vritas Mitikshanaha. Word for word translation. Prasada, palace. Sikhara, the roof. Aruttaha, ascending. Kurunaryaha, the ladies of the Kuru royalty. Didrikshaya, seeing. Vavrishuhu, showered. Kusumaihi, by flowers. Krishnam, upon Lord Krishna. Prema, out of affection and love. Vrita smita ikshanaha, glancing with shy smiles. Translation. Out of a loving desire to see the Lord, the royal ladies of the Kurus got up on top of the palace and, smiling with affection and shyness, they showered flowers upon the Lord. Purport. Shyness is a particular extra natural beauty of the fair sex, and and it commands respect from the opposite sex. This custom was observed even during the days of the Mahabharata, i.e., more than 5,000 years ago. It is only the less intelligent persons who are not well versed in the history of the world who say that observance of separation of female from male is an introduction of the Mohammedan period in India. This incident from the Mahabharata period proves definitely that the ladies of the palace observed strict purta, restricted association with men, and instead of coming down in the open air where Lord Krishna and others were assembled, the ladies of the palace went up on the top of the palace and from there paid their respects to Lord Krishna by showers of flowers. It is definitely stated here that the ladies were smiling there on top of the palace, checked by shyness. This shyness is a gift of nature to the fair sex, and it enhances their beauty and prestige, even if they are of a less important family or even if they are less attractive. We have practical experience of this fact. A sweeper woman commanded the respect of many respectable gentlemen simply by manifesting a lady's shyness. Half-naked ladies in the street do not command any respect, but a shy sweeper's wife commands respect from all. Human civilization, as conceived by the sages of India, is to help one free himself from the clutches of illusion. The material beauty of a woman is an illusion because actually the body is made of earth, water, fire, air, etc. But because there is the association of the living spark with matter, it appears to be beautiful. No one is attracted by an earthen doll, even if it is most perfectly prepared to attract the attention of others. The dead body has no beauty because no one will accept the dead body of so-called beautiful woman. Therefore, the conclusion is that the spirit spark is beautiful, and because of the soul's beauty, one is attracted by the beauty of the outward body. The Vedic wisdom, therefore, forbids us to be attracted by false beauty. But because we are now in the darkness of ignorance, the Vedic civilization allows very restrictive mixing of woman and man. They say that the woman is considered to be the fire and the man is considered to be the butter. The butter must melt in association with fire, and therefore they must be brought together only when it is necessary, and shyness is the check to the unrestricted mixing. It is nature's gift, and it must be utilized. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumalitam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tathate Svapatantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapatakamalам Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajata Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sachivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Goranki Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Pancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasad. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasad. Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namo. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharini Vishesh Srimati Prasade Vishadarini. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pralayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namo Gauritusha. Hare Krishna devotees. First of all, I'd like to express my gratitude to Karuna Chaitanya Prabhu, who is very kind, always is for my purification, is giving me this service, although I'm certainly unqualified to speak on Srimad Bhagavatam. But with the blessings of devotees, I hope I'll be able to glorify Srimad Bhagavatam and these wonderful verses. So first of all, I like to start with a verse, glorification of Srimad Bhagavatam. And this is from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And it goes like this. Nivritta tarshai upagiyamana bhavausadat chotra manopirama kauttama shloka gunanuvada puman virajeta vinapashupna. And the translation is: glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is performed in the Parampara system. That is, it is conveyed from the spiritual master to the disciple. Such glorification is relished by those no longer interested in the false temporary glorification of this cosmic manifestation. Descriptions of the Lord are the right medicine for the conditioned soul undergoing repeated birth and death. Therefore, who will cease hearing such glorification of the Lord except a butcher or one who is killing his own self? So I found this verse is very nice. It's describing this glorification, these descriptions of the Lord, which is like a main topic of Srimad Bhagavatam, as the right medicine for the conditioned soul, because we are like kind of in a diseased condition, and that we are identifying ourselves with the body and the mind instead of identifying ourselves with the soul. So in this diseased condition, the Srimad Bhagavatam and these discussions that that devotees gather together to carry out is like the right medicine. So it's quite interesting that usually like when we glorify someone, when we compliment someone, we do for their pleasure, and that's the that's the thing. We that's the mood we should also do with Krishna. But at the same time, because Krishna is so absolute and so amazing, that we actually like we derive benefits from glorifying him as well. So it's not just for his pleasure. At the same time, is for his pleasure, but at the same time we also get the benefit by glorifying him with description and talking about him. And so it's like it's interesting how it says here, it's like a medicine. So it's kind of like bringing back ourselves to our true nature, to our true identity, just by glorifying him. And it's also another interesting point here is like how this temporary world is like, and this material world is described as false and temporary. And so there is a quite huge difference between the glorification of the Lord and the glorification of this temporary world. So this wonderful verses today we're speaking about about these ladies that they're very, very much sad because Krishna is leaving from the palace of Hastinapur. So that it is described here how they were trying to check their tears because Krishna was leaving, so that they were very, very sad, and that they could do so only with great difficulty because their emotion was so great. And then in the second verse we read today, we have like this beautiful image. We can imagine like all these instruments like accompanying the Lord who was departing from the palace. And then another beautiful image, these ladies from the top of the palace, from the roofs, were like showering flowers, also to respect, to honor, and to glorify the Lord. So this idea of glorifying the Lord is constantly repeated here. So I was thinking that like we can go through the verses, and like I took out some points that Prabhupada is especially emphasizing in the purpose, and expand on those points. And I will go in order as they appear in the purpose, so you can follow that. So the first point that I found very interesting is in the purport of the first verse we read, is this idea of developing affection through hearing, even without the personal association. Like here Prabhupada is saying that that directly or indirectly, anyone who thinks of Krishna, talks of Krishna, worships Krishna, becomes attached to him. And this idea of talking and remembering and hearing about Krishna to develop affection is something that's like we find so many examples in all the scriptures. Like, for example, the first example that came to my mind when I was reading this is the example of Rukmini, that like she was about to be married to Shishupal. She never actually met Krishna before, but she always heard like about Krishna and his activities. So just by hearing, she just developed so much affection that she wrote a letter to Krishna to come and kidnap her, so she didn't have to marry Shishupal. And the greatest example, that the gopis, that even after Krishna left Vrindavan, that they went mad in like remembrance of Krishna. So even Krishna wasn't actually present there. They were like in so much absorbed in remembering him that they kind of like developing and increasing constantly their affection for him. And Srila Prabhupada explaining nicely in Krishna book about that. And he says there that although the inhabitants of Vrindavan felt separation from Krishna, the resulting ecstasy bhava caused them to perceive that Krishna was always present with them by his lila or pastimes. So this idea that separation, like in material life, like separation, if we are separated from someone we love, is actually just painful. But because Krishna is absolute, then even the separation is actually ecstatic. It's actually like bringing about this bliss and ecstasy in the devotees. So that is transcendental. And then we have like more examples, like maybe closer to us, like that Srila Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is spiritual master. Like and Srila Prabhupada never had so much like direct association with this Guru Maharaj, but just by constant remembrance of his instructions, he was always connected with his spiritual master. So this idea that actually like the Vani is more important than Vapu, that the instructions are more important than the physical presence. So, and even Srila Prabhupada and his disciples, when like Srila Prabhupada has so many disciples that like some of them were very fortunate and very had the privilege to serve him personally, but some of them, they couldn't have that direct association. But just because like all the devotees were always talking about Srila Prabhupada and his interaction with his disciples, and like just by constant hearing about him and all his interactions and dealings with with the devotees, they develop attraction just for that. So and that's the same we can apply for our situation, that maybe like our Guru Maharaj that maybe not be like physically present, or we may not have the opportunity to have like his direct association, but still like if we constantly remember his instructions, if we constantly follow his directions, then we are never separated from him. I think that there is a an essence, and when like Srila Prabhupada was pointing at his sorry, was pointing at his disciples, I don't actually remember like the exact same thing, but I think it's something like this, that he was pointing us to his disciples to kind of an insect or a fly near the deities, and he was like pointing at them saying like, so now you see like who is closer to the deities, and was actually that insect, but actually like who is deriving the most benefit from the association of the deities. And I was certainly not the insect, but the devotees. So it's because like that's the relationship is formed through and the service, the devotional service, not just by the physical proximity. And so this idea of the importance of hearing, the importance of connecting through the hearing is we find it many times in scriptures. And I was also like listening to a lecture by Radhana Swami Maharaj, who was saying that the mood, it was kind of giving the mood how to properly hear Srimad Bhagavatam and scriptures. And it said it's like a hungry man, like when we are really hungry and we have this like nice plate of prasad, it's like we relish and we feel nourished the more we eat it, and then the more we honor it. And it's the same as that kind of mood we should approach Srimad Bhagavatam, that we should approach it with the desire to get nourishment from Srimad Bhagavatam, not just as a ritual, not just as a duty or something that we have to do, but as with the genuine desire to connect with Srila Prabhupada, with the Parampara, with these teachings that can nourish our soul. And I remember it was like a few weeks ago that I met a book distribution. I met this guy, and it was like very let's say unfavorable. It was like very critic as well, like and he was saying, oh, this is all rubbish, I don't care about these things. And then I said, oh, okay, that's fine. Maybe you like music? And he said, yeah, I don't mind. So I gave him this like bookmark with mantra break website. And I said, listen to this, then you may like it. And then next time we meet, you can tell me what you think. And so I met him then after 1 week, and his mood was completely changed. I was kind of surprised. It was like a completely favorable and absolutely like open. And he took a book, he gave a donation. It was like he said, actually, yeah, I think this is nice. I like it. So like here, like here we can see like how Krishna, because he's absolute, it says in the scripture that he's present in the sound. So in that way, like he can change the heart of people even without them understanding what is going on. It's still like he, because he's absolute, he's not different from the sound. So he's present there, and he has such a powerful effect. And there's actually a very nice verse in Srimad Bhagavatam. It's in the first canto, second chapter, and it's a very famous verse. And Srila Prabhupada said in the purport, is explaining this like very clearly. It says, messages of the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, are non-different from him. Whenever, therefore, offenseless hearing and glorification of God are undertaken, it is to be understood that Lord Krishna is present there in the form of transcendental sound, which is as powerful as the Lord personally. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his Shikshastaka declares clearly that the holy name of the Lord has all the potencies of the Lord, and that he has endowed his innumerable names with the same potency. And then later on it says, the Lord is so kind to us that he can be present before us personally in the form of transcendental sound. So that's Srila Prabhupada here is clearly saying how, like, even if we may not have like the full realization of how Krishna is fully present in his sound, if we just have faith, because Srila Prabhupada is saying this, then we can see the effects in people. So, and here Prabhupada is saying in the purport also like how this relationship with Krishna can be revived just by hearing, remembering him. So moving on to the next verse, the second verse we read today, there is no purport for this, but what reminded me, like all these instruments playing, accompanying the Lord who is departing, is like reminding me of so many descriptions or videos that we see when Srila Prabhupada will arrive in the airport, and all the devotees like were greeting him with such a powerful kirtans, such a like enthusiastic kirtans that they will make an impression even in non-devotees, even in people just they were just there looking, they will make an impression on them because it was such a wonderful way to receive the spiritual master. So that's a very beautiful like picture to meditate on. And then for the next verse, it's very nice, interesting point Prabhupada is making in the purport. And the first point is making that this shyness, the shyness that commands respect. And there is a very strong statement here that Prabhupada is making, a kind of very much emphasizing this comparison between this spiritual culture, the Vedic culture, like compared to the materialistic culture. Like when he says that half-naked ladies in the street do not command any respect, but the shy sweeper's wife commands respect from all. So that's like comparison is quite strong, but it gives actually the idea of how like it doesn't matter the the economic position, or like here like Prabhupada is giving the example of sweeper's wife to making the point that it doesn't matter your like position in society, but still like what is really important is the essence of the person character and values. That's more important than the position in society, and how like the behavior, like sometimes Srila Prabhupada would say like that the devotees are perfect gentlemen and very nice ladies, that they that they behave in a nice proper way. So and I found this topic quite interesting, because like so many times when I look this illusion, like so many times that people ask me like, oh, you're Italian, why are you wearing like an Indian dress, like as if it's some kind of cultural thing, and but actually like that there are so many reasons, and every time like I reply according to the person or whatever, but one of the main reason like I was listening once to a lecture by Radhan Swami Maharaj, and he was saying that that people, when they come in contact with like anything related with Krishna, so like a book of Bhagavad Gita or something, like they get some purification. But when they actually appreciate something related to Krishna, actually their spiritual life has started. So it was saying that like we should present Krishna consciousness in such a way that we make people favorable to the movement in somehow. And like I found that like Vaishnava dress is a very wonderful way to make people appreciate, because it's so easy to appreciate like the colorful saris, or the little sparkling gems or whatever. It's like it's making very much easier for them to appreciate, and when they appreciate, it's actually devotional service. It's not like some kind of mundane compliment on a dress or something. So and here Prabhupada is also like making a nice point about how human life is meant for advancing spiritually, and kind of free himself, he says, from the clutches of illusion. So go beyond the illusion of this identification with the body and the mind, but coming to our true identity as the soul. So so this idea that the Vedic culture is actually is more conducive for spiritual advancement is also like emphasized here, and by this by Prabhupada like mentioning like the restricted association with men and women is kind of something that protecting the devotees in such a way that their like spiritual life is not disturbed. But the main reason why we all follow like all these Vedic culture, and maybe regulations, maybe restrictions, is nicely explained in Srimad Bhagavatam, that that the actual, like the ultimate goal is Krishna. And he's explained, there is a very nice verse, quite famous as well, in the 11th canto. Yeah. Okay. So the verse is saying that those who are followers of this Varnashram system accept religious principles according to authorized traditions of proper conduct. When such Varnashram duties are dedicated to me in loving service, they award the supreme perfection of life. So that's here, like Krishna is saying how the goal of all these duties and following the Vedic culture, here is mentioned the Varnashram system, is actually to be dedicated to Krishna in devotional service, because that's bringing the supreme perfection of life. So like sometimes it's given the example of having so many zeros, and like so many zeros is actually like adding to zero. But if you put one at the beginning, then all these zeros like they acquire value and it becomes such a huge number. So that's the same with all these rules and regulations. If we have like Krishna as the main purpose, then they actually acquire value, and they bring to the perfection of life. And it's like here in the purport, like Prabhupada is mentioning about how the physical beauty, the material beauty, is actually illusion, because the body is actually made of the material elements, so it's just temporary. So that's the same with the opulences that we may have in a material sense. Like in the scriptures, it is mentioned how there are 6 opulences that Krishna has in full, and we have like a small, minute percentage of them. And there's beauty, strength, wealth, renunciation, and knowledge, whatever, what else, fame. So all these opulences we may have, but actually they're not directly, if they're not used in the service of Krishna, they're just temporary. And like, for example, we may be so strong, we may be able to defeat like everyone with our strength, but like we've seen that like in few years that the body is just it's just growing old, and it just doesn't last. That's the same with fame. Like so many people were famous in the past that now they're completely forgotten. So it's just so temporary that like Prabhupada here is mentioning beauty, how beauty, we can see how it's so temporary. It's just few years, and then the body grows old. And then what's the value of beauty if not used in service? Because while the devotional service can like give eternal benefit, eternal like that the advancement is never checked, is always like going forward, while whatever temporary thing we may do, then they're just they give just temporary result, that it doesn't last so long. And we can see like even if we are so rich, like we have so much money, but then when we leave this body, we don't carry anything with us. So in that way, we can see how all these opulences are temporary if not used in the service. While if it's used in the service, like it is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, then there's a very nice verse in chapter 2, how it is mentioned that Krishna is saying that in this endeavor there is no loss or diminution, and a small advancement, even a little advancement on this path, can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. So it's like an eternal benefit for spiritual, for devotional service. That is interesting how like it says, no loss or diminution, in the sense that like it cannot be lost, like the advancement cannot be lost and cannot be diminished in that way. So so then like Prabhupada goes on saying that the um, the conclusion is that is the soul that is actually beautiful. It's not the body, because the body is just made of the of elements. And while usually when we think about like someone beautiful, we think about the form, or maybe we think about of beautiful mind or beautiful, you know, personality. But actually, what we are attracted to is actually the soul, because we've seen that like when the soul leaves the body, nobody is attracted to a dead body, like Prabhupada is saying here. So this is very like easy to understand. So it's interesting how this whole chapter is kind of like, if you look at the whole chapter, how like Prabhupada is mentioning the purport so many times about like some kind of principles for a God-centered society. And like, for example, at the beginning of the chapter, like it was mentioned how like Maharaj Yudhishthira was so pious, and like the citizens also were so pious, and even nature was giving like all resources for them to live in a nice and comfortable way. So it's kind of Prabhupada is kind of giving, following the verses, is kind of giving directions for like a society that is that has God in the center, and is kind of living in a peaceful way, in a very nice God conscious way. And this idea we find in so many other verses in the scriptures as well. Like, for example, one of the very nice verses that is very nicely explained this is found in the Sri Upanishad, is the first mantra, saying that everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. And one should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. And I mean, like this verse is so amazing that actually, like we can see here, like how if we are able to follow these directions, like we could have like a very peaceful society. And like because there is no reason, like if we have no enmity toward others, if we accept only whatever is necessary for us, we have no greed, we don't disturb others to that we want to get something from others, or we want to, you know, like exploit resources of nature or anything. We just accept whatever is necessary for us and live in a simple way, like Prabhupada was saying, simple living, high thinking. In that way, we can see that there will be like a perfect peaceful society. And I mean, I don't know so much about like, politics and social things, but like even in the small, we can see for ourselves, like even in a family, or even if in a society of devotees, or you know, like if it's true in the in a smaller community, it can be applied for sure, even in a bigger, in a more expanded situation. So like this idea of understanding that God is the supreme controller, supreme proprietor, and supreme enjoyer. And this, like, we can find also in the very famous verse at the end of the chapter 5 of Bhagavad Gita, the peace formula is called, that this idea that God is the best friend of everybody, and is the supreme enjoyer, and is the supreme controller, is the supreme proprietor. So in that way, if we can understand that, we can meditate on that, we can understand how every situation is actually for our own benefit. For if we surrender to the will of Krishna, then like he will arrange for us, and every situation we can take as his mercy. So we don't we are not frustrated whenever things don't go our way. We understand that it's actually is God's arrangement for us to advance, even if we are in challenging situations, because he's the best friend of everybody. So he's actually like caring for us. And then there is the supreme proprietor. So like nothing belongs to us. So in that way, we don't have greed over material things. And so we can see how this like this kind of directions that Prabhupada is giving, or that we can find in the scriptures that like Krishna himself is giving, is not something that's, you know, sectarian, or it's not something cultural in the sense that it can be applied only to a particular type of people, but it's universal. So like here, like these verses are, they can be applied anywhere, everywhere. It's not a sectarian thing. Like, for example, there is also a very nice verse in Bhagavad Gita, in the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmane Gavihastini Shuni Chaiva Shvapakircha Andita Samadarshinaha, that the humble sages, the virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahman, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater. So like this is one of the verses sometimes say, kind of explain on book distribution when I'm distributing Bhagavad Gita, that like the true wisdom is to see everyone with equal vision. That it's not something sectarian. When we understand that actually like everyone is a child of God, everyone is our brothers and sisters, then we don't discriminate, we don't discriminate, we don't like feel superior or inferior to others, but we understand that we actually like all we are meant to help each other to advance spiritually, to go back to Krishna. And there is I heard once there was like a disciple, devotee was asking like Radharani Swami Maharaj about how can we overcome this tendency when we go on book distribution to feel superior to the people we meet on the street, because it's usually like it's not very much helping in the service. Because if we go with the mood that okay, you don't know anything, you're like you need to completely change your life because you're doing everything wrong, like not usually people don't take don't take from that kind of platform, from that kind of mood, that they feel like that you're imposing something and you're trying to teach them because you feel like you are superior to them. It usually doesn't work. So this the devotee was asking like, Maharaj, how can we, you know, overcome this this attitude? And Maharaj was so strict. He said like, if you think that you are superior to them, you are in Maya. So it was very firm in saying that we are actually not superior to anybody, but we are just more fortunate because we receive the mercy of the spiritual master. And in that sense, we can see how we have no qualification, but that we are actually just receiving the mercy and passing on the mercy. Is not nothing is ours. The moment that we think that we are actually have qualifications, that's the moment that we actually displease the Lord. So, okay. So just to conclude, so we talked today about these wonderful verses, and this we started with this glorification, the glorification of the glorification of the Lord, about how by glorifying, by hearing about this glorification that we find in Srimad Bhagavatam, we can actually get the most the benefit as well of advancing spiritually, in the sense of coming back to heal from this condition of illusion. That is, it says that it's like the right medicine for getting back to our true nature. And then this idea that Prabhupada is mentioning, we went through the verse in this idea that Prabhupada is mentioning here in the verse, in the purport, how we can develop affection just through hearing, even without any personal association. If we don't have the opportunity, we can still developing attraction for Krishna just by remembering, talking, hearing about him. And then in the third verse we read today, like Prabhupada is making very wonderful point about this shyness as commanding respect from everybody, and this kind of this idea of this spiritual culture compared to the materialistic culture, and how, like, by following the spiritual culture, we can actually make more advancement, and we can fulfill the purpose of human life, which is to advance spiritually. And then this idea that beauty, material beauty, is actually illusion because it's just temporary, while what is really attractive is the soul, and what we are really attracted to is the soul. And then this idea that we find here, how this Prabhupada is kind of continuing, kind of giving the directions for a God-centered society that we find here, like emphasizing the restriction of association between men and women, that should associate only when necessary, says. So this kind of set of restrictions that we find in Vedic culture. So this idea of the Vedic culture that is explained and emphasizing all the chapter that we find in so many other scriptures, how we can follow these principles, these universal principles, to which are more conducive for advancement in spiritual life. So I think I'll stop here because it's 8:45. So thank you so much for tolerating me. And if there is any questions or any corrections or any or anything we can discuss. Okay, there is a question. Let's see if I can see. Okay, Hare Krishna, Madam Priya Mataji. She says, I really appreciate the way you give class. I have a question. You spoke about listening. How best can we listen attentively and put what we hear into practice? Very nice question. So few things come into my mind, and how can we best listen attentively? One thing that it comes to my mind is because we are not pure devotees, so we are conditioned souls. So we need to create like an environment to kind of sorry, I'm on the phone. Sorry. Okay. So we need to create a kind of environment conducive for having the focus and attention needed for reading. So, like for example, creating a space as sattvic as possible, like with no distractions, with no, like for example, if we have our phone besides us, maybe like get distracted by it, so that the more is kind of like that the less distraction possible, then the more attentive we will be in the reading. And the second part of the question was how to put into practice what we hear. So that's something that's like many spiritually advanced devotees, that they say that like to meditate, not just that these scriptures are not just books, but they are kind of a way, a means of connection with the parampara, with this wonderful devotees like Srila Prabhupada. Like just by reading his purpose, is just like we get the connection with him. So by just meditating on the instructions they're given, we can find a way to apply in our lives. And then also like the association of devotees, like to ask them to discuss with them, like the way they kind of trying to apply the teachings of Srila Prabhupada. So in that way we can get some inspiration from them. Like I found that is very helpful, like not just reading, but also listening lectures on the verses on Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, because then we can have like kind of a realized way to see the scriptures, like how these devotees have realized the scriptures and how they apply to their own lives, and then we can get some inspiration from them. So I hope it answers the question. Thank you, Mataji. Anything else? Any other points or correction or if not, I think maybe we can stop here. Karuna Chaitanya Prabhu, what do you think?
Yes, Mataji, I'll make. Let me make a final request to all the participants. First of all, thank you so much, everyone, for participating, attending the class. I request everyone to come forward and share their realizations any comments you have, any um, questions you have, please come forward.
Haribol.
Hare Krishna, Bal Krishna Prabhu.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Prabhu. Yes.
Now, I have one realization, as you say that asking for the realization. My memory goes in 1990, almost 32 years before. It was Pune Yatra. The Gurudev was taking us, asking us to all devotees come together for 3 days. And that was the first time we got an invitation from Ramanujacharya Sampradaya in Pune. They have a temple of Lakshmi Narayan. How much time we have? Do we have 5-10 minutes? 5-6 minutes?
Yes, Prabhu. Yes,
Okay.
Prabhu. Yes.
Okay. Because this is a kind of an incident, is an analogy of what verse we have read today. So this Lakshmi Narayan deities were there, and they didn't disclose what the program is, and they requested us to come for Harinam Sankirtan, because one of the trustee there, he knew one of the devotees from our side who was the organizer of the yatra. So all of us, we went around 50 devotees with their families, and all we went there, and we had a tremendous, wonderful kirtan of Lakshmi Narayan as well as Harinam Sankirtan, and everyone was very, very pleased to such an extent that the whole temple was fully crowded. It was right in the center, and the other sides, there were places where devotees can sit, and on the first floor, it is just like a balcony as it described in the verse here, that the ladies came out to their balconies. So they were standing and watching Kirtan, they have participated. And as you know, how Gurudev converts Kirtan into Sankirtan into dancing festival. And the dancing started, and it was so wonderful. Everybody was to their full. It was 32 years before, so most of them were young. And they were dancing, jumping, and not only the Ramanujacharya Sampradaya, those devotees and people were also jumping with us. And it didn't last there. And suddenly we found there was the flower throwing from the balconies on the devotees, those who are participating in Harinam Sankirtan and dancing. And it appeared, the Pujari came and he was so pleased. He said that kindly continue for another half an hour before all of us, you have to participate for the Rath Yatra of Lakshmi Narayan, because that supposed to be the installation anniversary of the deities. So all of us, after another half an hour, wonderful program, we joined for the Rath Yatra festival, and everybody was in a joyful mood, and they were appreciating that two sampradayas are coming together and celebrating the Lakshmi Narayan festival. You know, incidentally, we also have in our temple at Chaupati, Lakshmi Narayan deities and a temple, small temple is there. So for us, it was not new celebration of a Lakshminarayan festival. So when we were going along the street, where the chariot was pulled by the devotees with the ropes, and the kirtan was going on, and all the people around, they also participated, and they were coming along with the chariot. And as usual, we see the ISKCON is famous for dancing, and the dancing and chariot pulling was going on. And in Pune is the area in which the Rath Chariot Festival was going on. There also the people's houses have balconies. The first floor, and there are the old style houses. Every house has balcony, and there all the family members, especially all the ladies, Matajis, children, they all gather. And to our surprise, the first time we have experienced the showering of flowers on devotees and the chariot. And it was such a wonderful, wonderful realization, wonderful feeling, emotions. And that chariot festival went for almost for 1 hour. And after that, they serve prasadam to all devotees. So it's a wonderful, wonderful experience, which is almost like described here in the verse, when the ladies, because of their shyness, they were on the not coming down on the street. And the same thing was here. All the ladies were on the balconies and showering flowers on the deities of Lakshmi Narayan. So this reminded me of 30 years experience. And after that, every year it has become a custom. It lasted for another 5 to 7 years. And I noticed that most of the time devotees used to come for the Pune festival, for Yatra as well as for the chariot festival. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. It was coincident. I didn't get the opportunity to speak on this last time. So, but then this verse is such a wonderful, and this also happens in the temple. Few temples it happens when there is a Pushpa Abhishek, they celebrate the flower showering to the deities. When the flowers Abhishek is done to the deities, and afterwards, from the balconies of the hall, the temple hall, normally it is very big, and the top there are windows. From the windows, all these flowers which are offered to the deity is carried, and mostly on those windows the Mataji sit, ladies sit, and all they carry the flower baskets which was offered to the Lord, and from the top of that windows and balconies, they shower flowers on the devotees, those who have participated in the flower festival on the hall. And then I will restrict now because after that, the devotees start showering flowers on another devotee. And this festival of showering flowers, which is offered to the Lord, goes on for another half an hour to 45 minutes. Many devotees have experienced it. Once you come to the Radha Gopinath temple, you are most welcome for a flower festival. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much for sharing your memories. Very beautiful.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, Brajadevi Mataji, for enlightening class. I kindly request you to be always merciful on us and speak on these verses, on these beautiful chapters of Bhagavatam whenever you can. Her Grace Brajadevi Mataji ki jai. And thank you everyone as well for being present. Next week another
Thank you so
wonderful
much,
speaker.
Guru.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Next week another wonderful speaker will guide us on the next set of verses.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mataji. Thank you very
Hare
much.
Krishna Mataji. Thank you, Mataji.
Hare
Thank
Krishna
you.
Mataji. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mataji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.